up, and welcome back. So, if you're new here, I'm Liz, and this is Great Crime Time, where I'm your host. I sit down, talk about a true crime case, and most of the time, there is art involved. So, I bet you're wondering what we're going to do today for our Valentine's Day stuff. Extravaganza. We're going to be talking about Pamela Smart. If you don't know who she is, stop hiding under a rock. Well, so Pamela Smart was born as Pamela Wojas. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Yeah. So she was born on August 16th of 1967 in Windham, New Hampshire. So she was the daughter of John and Linda Wojas. She grew up in Miami, Florida, and before her family moved to Derry, when she was in the 8th grade when they moved to Derry, New Hampshire. So Windham and Derry are actually pretty close to one another. Pamela actually graduated from Pinkerton Academy, which is in Derry. She was a well-known cheerleader. She was popular, and she would eventually go to Florida State University and graduate with a degree in communications. And it was also known that when she was at Florida State University, she had been the host of the college radio program. So, Pamela would meet her future husband, Gregory Smart, while she visited New Hampshire over Christmas break in 1986. So, they formed a serious relationship in February of 1987, and they would be married about 2 years after that. And Gregg actually moved to Florida to live with Pamela during her senior year at FSU. The couple shared a passion of heavy metal music together. They liked to party together. They liked to be young together. However, about 7 months into their marriage, they began to have severe difficulties in their relationship. Pamela took a job as a media coordinator at Winnicott High School in Hampton. This is where she would meet her future lover, Billy Flynn, at Project Self-Esteem, which was a local drug awareness program at Winnicott High School, where they both volunteered. They would bond over their mutual interests in heavy metal, and Pamela also would meet another intern. Her name was Cecilia Pierce, who was also friends with Billy. So, okay. Yeah. So, Pamela and Billy began to have a romantic relationship. And this all culminated, all started and happened, literally around the time that her and Gregg started having problems with their marriage. So, on May 1st of 1990, Pamela Smart came home from a meeting from work to find her condo ransacked, and she found Gregg dead. So, police would come to the crime scene, and it said that the crime scene looked like a disrupted burglary, so it wasn't fully burglarized, something stopped them. So, yeah. Pamela was later accused of seducing her 15-year-old lover, Billy Flynn, and threatened him that if they would stop having sex, if he refused to kill her husband. She literally was just I will withhold sex from you if you don't kill my husband. The only way we can be together is if you kill my husband, stuff like that. And so Billy did so with the help of his friends Patrick Randall and Vance Latime and Raymond Fowler. Yeah, Raymond Fowler. Jesus, why do I have a hard time saying his name? Raymond Fowler. Yeah. So during the investigation, JR, which is Vance, JR's father brought a .38 caliber that he found in his house to police, believing it may have been the murder weapon. On May 14th, an anonymous tip also indicated that Cecilia was aware of the plan, and police then talked to Cecilia, who then agreed to wear a wire and record conversations that her and Pamela had in hopes that she would say something incriminating. And of which she did. Oh, did she? So on August 1st of 1990, Detective Pelletier approached Pamela in Winnickett's parking lot. Pamela recognized him, having spoken to him at least once, at least 6 other occasions. And she was taken by surprise, so she just said, "What's up?" And he's like, "Well, Pam, I have some good news and I have some bad news. The good news is that we've solved the murder of your husband. The bad news is you're under arrest." That's the greatest fucking arrest I've ever heard. And she's like, "What for?" "First-degree murder." So she was then handcuffed and arraigned at Derry District Court and jailed at the New Hampshire State Prison for Women, which was in Goffstown at the time. So her trial was basically a zoo. Literally, it was a zoo. And so her trial was widely watched. It was widely all over the media. Partly because it was the first in the U.S. to allow TV, in cameras, to be in the courtroom. And she also faced life if convicted. So the prosecution's case relied heavily on the testimony of her co-conspirators, the teenage co-conspirators. So Cecilia and Billy and JR and Raymond, they had all secured their own plea deals before her trial started. When arguments began on March 4th of 1981, the ADA Assistant Attorney General Diane Nicolosi portrayed the teenagers as being naive victims to an evil woman hell-bent on murder. Prosecution portrayed Pamela as the cold-blooded mastermind who controlled her underage sex partner, which was Billy, and seduced him to have him murder her husband. This is so she could avoid an expensive divorce and benefit from $140,000 in a life insurance policy. So in Pamela's own testimony that she gave, she acknowledged that she had termed an affair with an underage boy. She acknowledged that, which, I'm sorry, you should be charged with rape. That's statutory rape. But claimed that the murder of her husband solely was just Billy's doing and his friends, as a reaction of her telling Billy that she wished to end their relationship because she wanted to fix her marriage with Gregg. She insisted that she neither participated in the murder plot or had any knowledge of it, though Billy claimed that he had fallen in love with Pamela when he first met her. And Cecilia testified, the girl that wore a wire, she testified at the trial saying that Smart and Flynn were originally just friends. Cecilia first noticed a change in about February when Pamela confessed to her that she loved Bill. Literally told her she loved Bill. Billy testified at the trial that he was a virgin before he had sex with Pamela. I feel so bad for him. I feel so bad for you. I know you're out of prison now, and you're happy now, but I'm sorry that you let her take your virginity. That was meant for somebody you were in love with her, but still. Anywho, so the trial lasted 2 weeks and ended on March 22nd of 1991 at the Rockingham Superior Courthouse, where she was found guilty of being an accomplice to first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and witness tampering. The tampering stemmed from Pamela Smart trying to coerce Cecilia not to say anything to the authorities and to lie. Yeah. So the conviction was a result of the testimony of all of the conspirators and being secretly taped. So the wire that Cecilia wore. And these taped conversations showed Pamela contradicting her claims of having wanted to reconcile with Gregg and of having no knowledge of the boys' plot. So she could have been charged with capital murder, but they decided against it. So literally later that day, on the 22nd, she was given the mandatory sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole. She has argued relentlessly that the media has influenced her trial, and she even explained in an HBO documentary in 2014, which is called Captivated: The Trials of Pamela Smart. Like, she explained it all in that, of how she feels and how, like, everything is wrongful. She doesn't feel like she got the right trial. She doesn't feel that she should be in jail still for the murder. So she was in the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility. Currently she's at the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, which I find ironic because that's where Carolyn Wormus was. And she was transferred there in 1993, so that means that her and Carolyn Wormus were in the same jail at the same time. That's some fucked up shit. Anywho, and she was transferred there in 1993 after being at the New Hampshire State Prison for Women. So they transferred her for unspecified security reasons. Billy Flynn and then Patrick Randall, they were transferred out of state. In both cases, they were sent to the Maine State Prison for Men, like in Warren, Maine. Yeah. So before she was transferred, there was a little leak about what had happened with Pamela in jail, and apparently she had accrued 22 disciplinary reports. 2 of them were minor offenses, and this all led to her being transferred to a new place, and they felt that the New Hampshire State Prison for Women was unsuitable for her, so they sent her to New York. So even though Pamela maintains her innocence, she did say that if her husband would still be alive, if her husband was still alive, she probably still would have continued her affair with Billy. I mean, my personal beliefs is that she probably would have gotten pregnant by Billy and then pinned the baby on Gregg and forced him to raise a child that wasn't his. That's what I believe. And so while Pamela's been in prison, she has tutored other inmates and has completed 2 master's degrees with concentrations in literature and legal studies from Mercy College. All of which were paid for by private funds from Mercy College. She has also become a member of the National Organization for Women, which campaigns for women's rights in prison. In October of 1996, she was severely beaten by 2 fellow inmates, Mona Graves and Gania Miller. This resulted in an insertion of a plastic plate in the left side of her face because of how bad they beat her. They beat her because they accused her of snitching on them about their prison relationship. So they were convicted on 2nd-degree assault charges for the attack on her at the Bedford Hills Correctional Facility, which caused them to be transferred to 2 separate prisons. So after her being beaten, she has started taking medication for chronic pain and sometimes thinks about suicide. Yeah. Her counselor would come out and say that she has many dark days. Smart did say that she keeps track of Billy, and because she regards him as being her key to freedom, she wants to be able to keep tabs on him. That's some crazy fucking shit right there. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. You fucked his life up. Don't do that. Nay. Yeah. So in 2003, there was photos that were published of Pamela that showed her in a way of she was very scantily dressed. We'll just say that she didn't have a lot of clothes on. And they were published in the National Enquirer. She then filed a complaint against the prison and was placed in solitary confinement for 2 months. So Pamela sued, claiming that the photos were taken by a prison guard who had raped her, but the lawsuit was dismissed. So her and Carolyn, in 2004, if you haven't watched the Carolyn Warmus video, I will link it. They sued Bedford Hills, claiming sexual harassment and sexual assault by a correctional officer. So it was both of them that sued them. So, obviously, they won. Yes, in those pictures of her being scantily dressed, she was coerced into posing in them for the guards, as in like suggestive poses, and these were the ones that were published. So in November of 2009, she was given $23,875 as a payout. I hate when they pay you, oh, we're guilty, here's some money. Well, she only received $8,700 of it, while her attorney received the rest of it. She has since been taking part in writers' workshops, and her writing was exhibited on PBS in a documentary in 2003, which is called "What I Want My Words to Do to You." So fitting, so fitting for her. Yeah. So she has tried to appeal her case, and she keeps getting rejected. She also, while she was interviewed by ABC News, she said that she's afraid of growing old and dying and would have rather been given the death penalty. So, I'm happy you got life in prison. That we don't have the death penalty in New Hampshire anymore. I mean, if we did, there would be a lot of hangings that happen because our death penalty is death by hanging. Yeah. So, Billy Flynn was sentenced to life in prison for second-degree murder in 1992. He wouldn't be eligible for 40 years, with 12 years being the minimum sentence deferred if he maintains good behavior. He obviously was in Warren, Maine at the Maine State Prison. He earned his GED. He's been active in charity work. He maintains his good behavior. He worked as an electrician in prison. In 2007, he sought after having his sentence reduced after serving 16 years, stating that he had not vowed, he spent so many years behind bars, he has never been able to live as a young man. He also apologized to Gregg Smart's family for murdering him, and his family, Gregg Smart's family, actually opposed his request. So his request was formally denied on February 12th, 2008. So his earliest eligibility date was reduced by 3 years to 25 years, making him eligible for parole in 2015. So, July 2014, he was moved to a minimum security facility in Warren, Maine, and the transfer allowed him to participate in a work release program. He was granted parole in 2015 and released from prison with lifetime parole on June 4th of 2015. This was just a few days after the 25th anniversary of Gregory Smart's death. So, like Flynn, Patrick Randall was also sentenced to life in prison for second-degree murder, eligible for parole after 40 years with 12 years deferred, making him eligible as early as 2018. Again, in his case as well, the judge reduced his minimum by 3 years, which made him eligible for parole in June of 2015, and he was also granted parole by the New Hampshire Parole Board after a hearing on April 9th, 2015. He was then also released the same day as Billy Flynn on June 4th of 2015 on lifetime parole. Yeah. So the last one, JR, actually the other two, so JR and Raymond. So JR was sentenced to life in prison as an accomplice of second-degree murder, and eligible for parole 30 years, but with 12 years suspended, making him eligible in 2008. In 2005, his minimum sentence was reduced by 3 years, and he was paroled that same year. Raymond was sentenced to 30 years for conspiracy to murder and attempted burglary and paroled after 15 years. He was paroled in 2003, which was 13 years after Gregory Smart's death, but he was sent back to prison in 2004 for violating his parole terms, but again achieved parole in June 2005. So that, my friends, is the lovely case of the death of Gregory Smart. Cecilia was never incarcerated because of her plea bargain. She was really used as a ploy to get the whole thing like out in the air. That's what Cecilia was used for. And it was smart to use her because Pamela Smart, they kind of like treated her as her best friend, because I mean Pamela was still stuck in that juvenile thought that I'm young, I can befriend them, I can be friendly with them, like, and ultimately that's what caught up with her. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's case from lovely New Hampshire. Because, I mean, yeah, if you don't really think about New Hampshire true crime, I mean, without thinking of Pamela Smart, the Bear Brook State murders, Bear Brook State Park murders with Bob Evans. I'm going to be covering that in a future video. So stay tuned with that. Then Sheila LaBar from Epping, where I lived. She's another one, which I have found a lot of people don't really know about her. So read up. Then we have H.H. Holmes, who was born in Gilmanton, New Hampshire. A lot of people don't know he's from New Hampshire, but there he is. And we have a lot of disappearance cases like Laureen Ron, Denise Bowden, like a lot of these cases that people don't really think of, but should, because there's a lot in each state. And that, my friends, I will keep striving to keep covering more cases from all of the states in the United States, and eventually cases all around the world. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in my next case. Bye, guys.
Give me love.